It's Trout Redfin time. The March Tackle Club Trout Redfin box. Oh my gosh, these are so tiny and cute. I don't know where to start. Start off with the terminal tackle before we get into lure talk this time. So from our friends at Suffix, imported by Rapala, this is the Suffix Super 21 fluorocarbon in a 6 pound. So you know that you've got a good abrasive resistant leader to keep your lures and your fish attached to the end of your rod. Now let's talk lures. I'm going to start off with the smallest ones I can see and let's work out way bigger. That might be the best way to go about it this time. So this one here from Alternative Baits. These are upcycled soft plastic lures. So essentially what they do, they get all the rubbish and crap that we or other people may leave around and not need. And if it's usable, they will melt it down and build new fishable lures for us to use. This is a great initiative to start cleaning up some rubbish and get some more lures that we can then catch more fish and get back out in the water with from Alternative Baits. So these ones here, tiny little plastic. They kind of look like a little yabby or a little water bug, which is gonna be perfect. But you wanna put these on a very light jig head. Now you can do like the twitch and pause retrieve, especially if you're fishing nice and light. So you can give it a twitch and then pause, let it slow sink. Twitch, pause, let it slow sink. And this is actually a great way to mimic some of those little water bugs that get around. Now, if you do find a little trout or redfin start to chase it, redfin, I'll probably be more inclined to add some more pauses. So pause and keep that up. The trout starts chasing, start speeding up the retrieve, and you'll find often that will actually try harder to come and strike your lure. Now moving to a little bit of a bigger soft plastic from Magbite. This is the Magbite Chucky. I've got the 2.3 inch glow color here, so obviously fantastic for fishing low light situations. Something like this is just a little tiny paddle tail plastic ribbed for her pleasure underneath the belly, so you're going to get a lot of vibration and stuff as it travels and swims through the water. Something like this I'll probably still fish with a light jig head, but maybe not as light as your upcycled plastics from Alternative Baits over here. A little bit of a faster retrieve for this one for me, as I'm going to be fishing it a little bit differently. More of just a constant medium wind would probably be suitable for something like this. Now the biggest plastics that we have this month from Storm. This is the Storm Toc Minnows. These are a big T-tail, paddle tail plastic, so they get big wide wobble with the tail, big body roll as well, which is going to be awesome for your bigger trout and also your really feisty redfin as well. If you're fishing your impoundments, feel free to chuck on a heavier jig head, like a quarter up to half ounce, depending on how deep you're actually fishing. If you're fishing the rivers and streams, jump all the way back to like a quarter, eighth, even 1/16 of an ounce is completely fine. Obviously you've got to gauge the waters that you're fishing in. Something like this, I'll just let it sink down to the depth that I think the fish are holding at. This is where a fish finder can really come in handy, and then just slow to medium retrieve to keep at that depth and try to retrieve it through those schooled up fish. And there's more. We move on to the hard bodies. So a vibe here from Fishcraft, the Dirty Doctor. So this is a little tiny vibration style lure, so obviously great for vertical fishing, but you can also fish these on the cast and retrieve as well. Keep in mind that the two trebles underneath it means that it can be prone to snagging up, so I tend to use something like this in more open water. So for me, I'm thinking impoundments. If I'm fishing a little creek, I'd probably more often opt for the plastics in here. But if you're fishing open water, jump over to your little Fishcraft vibe here and you're having a laugh. Now last but not least, Demiki Era SS. So SS is slow sink. This is going to be perfect for actually counting down or letting sink down along those weed edges, especially if you're fishing some little streams and stuff. You can cast out into those little quiet pools and eddies, let it sink down before you give it a twitch out and start your retrieve. And this can often lead to little great bouts where trout will actually fight over each other chasing after your lure. Great way to work this. If you're fishing an impoundment though, look for some of your weed edges or some of your structure, cast it out and you can let this slow sink in front of that structure before you start your retrieve out of it, which is fantastic because a lot of little crankbaits like these are generally floating or suspending, so it's very handy to actually have a slow sink one in your arsenal just to chop and change things up. especially as it starts to cool off now. You might want something like this. It can sink down in their face before you start the retrieve, as opposed to it floating away from the structure that the fish are holding in. And that's it for the Trout and Redfin box this month. If you want to check it out or any of the others in the range, just head to www.tackleclub.com.au, pick a box that is right for you, and welcome to the club.